Hi there, I'm going to attempt to show you a visual representation of the harmonic convergence, what it was before the spiritual metaphysical community kind of took it over and trying to rewrite history with their Mandela effect. It was a legitimate cycle that astronomers and even NASA put out a press release back in 2000 when it was happening, or was it 2013, so during that time, where these two cycles converge and kind of harmonize in an interesting way. It will happen in 2000. But before I do that, I'm going to go over here and show you something else. So we see this symbol quite a lot, sun and moon right together, don't we? We have Cancer here and Leo right here, and we have the solstice fitting right in between. So if we do play this out and we put Cancer here, Leo here, then we've got that symbol right here, and you can connect them right there. So if we just keep playing this out, you're going to see putting the rest of them there. Taurus, Libra both with Venus.
Sorry, this is Wendy's.
These two with Mars. These two Jupiter. These are classical rulerships. The last two Saturn rulerships. What is that? They are connected and makes a perfect circle. Look at that. It's the harp. That's where the angels played. The adepts know how to play that, in a good way, I guess, to play a good song, opposite of what we see happening in the world today. And that's where this comes from. But I'm going to show you how this works. Let's start with the year 2000, but it doesn't have to be 2000. It can be any 00. I think any century. Sure, yellow is going to be solar. We're going to do 12 years out this way, 12 years out this way, which will be 1988. So 12 years out one way and 88 out this way. And then for the lunar cycle, it's 13 years, 1987. And right in here is where it converges. So the timelines are kind of all in one. Everybody is whole. And if you remember that movie Inside Out, I don't know if you saw that movie, where there was these core memories that she would put in the carousel. It's kind of like that, where there's one reality in a sense. Moon and solar, they're not broken yet because this is a pretty tight circle. And let's take this a little further. This is going to get pretty messy. 2024, 76. A lot of people want to try and make things fit where they don't need to fit. We've already got a very elegant system, 12-based system. Actually, it's base 60, but 12-based system with the solar. We've got another very well-developed system with the Mayan that's 13-based. It is what it is. When people say a month, it's very confusing because are we talking about a month? Are we talking about the 27 days? Are we talking about 4 weeks? Are we talking about a solar month? So there's some wiggle room in the definition of that, and that confuses things. People always want to bring in the 13th sign Ophiuchus, I think it's called. And we just don't need any of it because it's already elegantly put together. Math is always perfect, relatively perfect. Already we have a correlation here, don't we? Look at this one. 52, 48, 52, 48. My theory is that if anybody is an actual time traveler, they can jump at some of these that correlate together. They must be kind of potent portals of some sort. Here's another 52, 48. Look at that. And in the Mayan, I think some people have a skill set of, like skywalkers, they're called, in one of the Mayan systems. And maybe some other people have some other kind of time traveling, and my guess is that they have to use these kind of potent spots or portal spots. So my thinking is that here is where it devolves into binary, because here the pattern can no longer hold here. If you keep going 13, 13, and 12 this way, it doesn't hold. The pattern will not hold, and it kind of devolves into ones and zeros. When I tried to work it out, it's no longer 0 in here. It was ending up to be a 1. It also will do the same thing up at the top. So I think this is binary, and when people have experiences of, hey, I just thought about something and now I'm getting these ads, and there's no way I didn't search it, but how does it know my thoughts? It's because we're all kind of linked into the binary, and especially if you, I think, dip into here, then you're more linked into the binary. You see the 9604 a few times, and at the bottom there, it's kind of like you're circling the drain of eternity, or a treadmill, you're not really, doesn't seem like you're really going anywhere. I think these numbers have a bit of a negative connotation. It's got some, now in the Mayan system, 20 is the same, the symbol for 20, which is like something like that, I don't know exactly, but is the same as the symbol for 0. Just the symbol, because to them, you'll see why it works out similar. Okay, so we've got 20 here, 20 here. If you were to take this whole here and make a mirror image of it, flip it and make a mirror image of it, what would you have? 20, 20, 20, 20. And now you'd have a square of 20, 20. And in the middle, what do we have? The zeros. That's where we get the phrase, hindsight is 20/20. Okay, so here I finished out the 400 years. I don't know if it's 400 years or if all of this is happening simultaneously. My guess is it's simultaneous. But there is something called a 400-year solar cycle, so it's possible. I mentioned this part down here where things kind of devolve into binary, zeros and ones. Also up here is zeros and ones. Binary could be either spot. At this point, it doesn't, the 00 does not stay here anymore. That's why it's kind of like a cycle that just ends here and here. It doesn't continue on. Here's some interesting parts. You've got 20, 20. If you were to flip this part here and put it over here, you would then have another 20, 20. Interesting also here, if I had lined it up right, but we've got 44, 44 right here. Again, 44D, for those of you who remember. Got another 44D here. These are, looks like to me, portals for people who have some kind of time travel ability, whether that be metaphorical or real. I don't have knowledge to that, but I think some people have more abilities to pick up on stuff. There's another one up here. So in here is not only 00, but there's also an year, 8 years in play. It's like kind of like a Mobius strip, I guess, would explain. But if you were to really break down these numbers into more fine, you would see that there's some wiggle room in here. So I guess that's where that whole washing machine concept comes. If you're taking your hands and rubbing like two sticks together, I think there's a kind of wiggle room in here. Here, 76, 27. Spirit is 76. If you take 27 4 times, what do you got in the middle? You've got an 8. Well, it's 108, but still. I think that's where the spirit of 76 came from. So here you've got kind of like boomer 1950s, and then here you've got, it doesn't necessarily work that way, but eventually the 50-yard line moves along. So if you've got 50s here and the aughts here, and then another 50-year line here, then you got the next zero. The 50-yard line moves. Not only is this the zero void kind of area, it's also, even though it looks like 50-yard lines on this side and another 50 is here, if you can picture a 50 is actually in here. I don't know how to do a visual representation of that, but it's also party time there. All the souls are kind of present. But once you get into the 25s and the quarter 75s, it seems like the center doesn't hold. Things get a little lacy, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do another kind of crisis or war in order to inspire a baby boom again at the next 50-yard line. But I do expect, if I can predict population and party time, it'll be a good time to be a teenager again. Music, just kind of a resurgence. If we can get through these next 15 years, that will probably be, rough as it has been. What else is there? 9604 we've got here, we've got here, and we've also got one here on the lunar cycle. So it's always on the solar cycle, but here on the one time it's on the lunar cycle, interestingly enough. One thing I may have forgotten to say was the Mayans, this symbol in Mayans, I don't know how they draw it, but something like that, is 0 and 20. So to them, this symbol is both. So if you go back, you'll see that the 20 is surrounding the 0, 0, 0. If we flipped it, you'd have 0 right in the middle. So this whole world, if it's built by time, motion of time, is basically built on a void, built on nothing. And this washing cycle, this kind of washing machine cycle. This is another interesting one, 5656, perfectly lines up. You don't see that very often. None of them line up perfectly except that one, which is also where the 2020 is. So this is a particularly interesting wing, I guess we could call it. At this point, the reason it won't go any further is because it just evolves. The moon cycle cannot carry on. This 12 cycle can keep going indefinitely, but the moon cycle falls apart. So it works perfectly. Here, all these things correlate kind of in this short amount of time, here and here, and a perfect harmonic convergence in here, and perhaps expanded upon in here, but no one talks about this one. They only talk about this one. So that's my explanation of visual representation or of a longer calendar cycle.